Well, this is for you, Aries. It's April 2016. I'm Dadhichi from astrology.com.au. For those of you that are new, welcome. I hope you'll continue joining us here while we look at what's happening month by month in your sun sign horoscope. And this is a pretty significant month. There is a new moon on the 7th occurring. You got it, in your sun sign of Aries. This of course means some brilliant new opportunities for you, but these may not necessarily be associated with anything outside yourself. You have the sun, of course, in your sun sign right now, so you're having what's called the solar return. That does give you a real jolt, an upliftment in your physical energy levels. Mercury as well, and coming into close conjunction right at the outset of the month with Uranus. So that gives you a spark of brilliance intellectually. But the new moon occurring on the 7th does have a tendency to produce some pretty important long-term effects in terms of the way you perceive yourself. And naturally that is the building block of success in life. If you have no self-esteem, and that's rare, might I say, with you being born under the sign of Aries, but if for some reason you've been lacking in that self-confidence and that ability to really figure out what direction you want to go in, then the new moon is certainly something to watch out for in terms of turning over a new leaf. Now that new moon is also usually followed by a full moon. I talk about this every month because this sets the pattern, the trend for each of the star signs. On the 22nd there's a full moon which occurs in the 8th sign of the Aries horoscope, and that 8th sign is very transformative as well. So we can see both sides of the coin here pointing very much to a transformation taking place here. A really deep need for you to unearth that potential within yourself, to move in the direction that you really desire, and to kick that fear to the curb, as I say. The full moon in Scorpio has a lot to do with your sexual relationships as well. This sign of death and renewal could be applied to your relationships, given the fact that you're going through a new moon in Aries and then the full moon taking place in the transformative rebirth sign of Scorpio. So that tells you that you are looking for a way to recreate your relationships, particularly those relationships that are of an intimate nature. And so that's another very, very important date. The Scorpio theme is very strong for you this month, Aries, given that also at the outset of the month we see the close conjunction of the moon with Pluto in the 10th house of career. So that's something as well that will be tied in with these lunations, the new moon and also the full moon. Not just your intimate personal relationships, your sexual relationships, the relationship with yourself, but also, for example, the relationship you might have with a significant employer, because that 10th house still contains that slow-moving Pluto. We often refer back to this as being such a long-term transit that for many of you born under Aries, the career, the self-identity as well, because the 10th house, or what we call the midheaven, that whole area above you at the time you were born, the 10th house from your sun sign position, has everything to do with how you're going to develop as a personality. So we can expect some pretty big transformations taking place in that area. And of course, if you're looking to change who you are, then that naturally impacts every department of life. But these are the main ones that I'm seeing for you right now. I wanted to mention also that on the 6th, just prior to the new moon, we see the movement of Venus into your sun sign as well. So you're getting a jam-packed, it's almost like rush hour on the celestial highway for you this month in your sun sign, with Venus also moving into that area, casting a very, very nice aspect to your 7th house of relationships. And that, I think, has to be used, especially leading up to the full moon in that 8th house. If you can woo your partner or your lover, if you can use more persuasive, charming sort of elements in your nature to convey what it is that you want this month, I think that's going to be one of the keys to, gaining some successful ground in that specific area. You'll notice, as I've been saying the last few months, I've been wanting to make this more of a thematic sort of reading rather than doing what most of the astrologers are doing. Because then all you're getting is a complete chronology of dates and times, when in fact, astrology is not that simple. The impending conjunction of your ruling planet, Mars, moving to that conjunction of Saturn in your 9th house is one that interests me very, very much. That is a pattern that will continue up until August. That's getting stronger now. For those of you that are students or doing some sort of higher studies, for those of you that are travellers, maybe even working in the travel industry, for you particularly, this conjunction is going to be a difficult one, especially now because Saturn is retrogressing. That means both of these planets are moving towards each other. Saturn slowly going backwards, and Mars, the faster planet, moving towards it in the sign of Sagittarius. Saturn is your career planet. So that's why I've mentioned work that is associated with this. Students, this can be a frustrating time, and you've really, really got to bring those reactive energies under control this month. If you've got any hope of really using the power of that, well, there is power in frustration too. Frustration, anger, those forms of energy need to be redirected so that you can get the most out of it. And you've got a lot of challenging aspects there, especially at the outset of the month with that moon in that 10th house, as I said, close to Pluto, squaring some of those other planets such as the Sun, Mercury, and Uranus in your sun sign. So straight off the mark, you've got quite a bit of a challenge throughout the month. We see that in Sagittarius, around the 17th, a retrogressing of your ruling planet. So that's an interesting one, because just as we see Mars about to come into conflict with Saturn, and it will enter the orb, because normally we allow about 8 degrees, but it's going to retrograde back out. So it's quite likely, and that's interesting, because then we're going to see Saturn chasing the faster moving Mars, which will slow down. And these are two very diametrically opposed energies. Hence, me focusing on this particular aspect quite a bit for you, and saying that you need to bring that area of your life under control, those energies. If you can do that, then we would see a more constructive outcome to the problems that you're encountering in those areas. For you, I would say, particularly if you're not working in the field of travel, any sort of travel that you're thinking of, if you can rethink that, it's probably better. This is the classic sort of injurious conjunction that astrologers like to advise you avoid. You've got Neptune in the 12th house. There's a very powerful square aspect now between Neptune, that Mars-Saturn conjunction as well, which also hints at the fact that any travel or plans to emigrate or relocate are best left till these transits pass later in August. And we're going to talk more about that. We have more of a detailed analysis of the month. I just wanted to touch on the themes that are running through your chart. Astrology.com.au, and of course you can always contact me here. Leave a message or go to the site if you'd like a more personal analysis of your horoscope. I'm always happy to do that. Look forward to your company next month. Bye-bye.